I want to see if I can get through this review quickly, because even though I normally waffle on about films, I don't have a lot to say about this film. So this is The Killer, directed by David Fincher, starring Michael Fassbender, based on a graphic novel. And I didn't know that till after I watched the movie that it's based on a graphic novel, but it really does feel like kind of a video of a Punisher issue. It's very one man and his internal dialogue, methodically planning to do something violent and then doing it. On paper, it's a revenge flick. It's ironically a tropey film where an assassin botches a job and then he is targeted for elimination for failure and goes on a revenge tour against the people who hired him. And that's about it. There's very little dialogue in this film. There's almost no plot besides that. There's none of the typical tropes that go along with a movie like this. There's no major car chases. There's only one fight scene. There are no gunfights. It's a lot of watching a assassin meticulously plan and execute attacks on people. And the only kind of drama really to it, I really feel like, because Michael Fassbender is playing a very robotic, very cold, borderline sociopathic character who's not even particularly like malicious and doesn't really have a direct personal vendetta against the people who wronged him, because it's just business, and it's just business because he fucked up. And I feel like they almost throw in the girlfriend that gets attacked right as he's trying to go home, and she gets attacked because he wasn't there and they sent assassins to kill him, almost in there just to make it so it isn't completely without a human connection, because the people he's retaliating against don't have any personal animosity towards him. The client who paid to have him rubbed out for failure never knew who he was and didn't even really understand that he was paying for this guy's death. The two assassins that attacked his girlfriend had no personal knowledge of him or really cared, and one of them even felt sorry for the fact that his girlfriend got harmed, but he didn't care. Michael Fassbender's character is so cold that just finding out where the assassins came from, he ends up killing a cab driver who was 100% innocent and unconnected to anything, and probably never would have had any means of getting him in trouble, but he kills the guy anyways. So that shows that, Fassbender's also not playing a very heroic or moral character. And even though it's kind of personal for him, it's very apparent that tinge of personalness to the revenge is the one thing he's trying to talk himself out of in his head, which is most of the dialogue of the movie, telling himself to be calm, to be methodical, and to not be hurried, to only do what he sets out to do, show no mercy, allow for no weakness, do not be vulnerable. And the only real drama of the movie is it's clear that at points he's not doing the best he can because he's taking it personally. And it's shown very subtly. It's not even so much in the physical performance of Fassbender. There's very little subtle things he does to show that he's a human being with feelings. Like he wears a watch because he's frequently killing people with a sniper rifle, and he tries to get his heartbeat, his pulse rate down to 60 beats per minute so he can easily time a shot between heartbeats like super badass army snipers do. And at one point he's wearing it while he's just staking out a place, and he gets frustrated because it's going over 100 beats per minute and it's beeping at him like, you need to chill the fuck out, and he takes it off. But that's like the only thing that shows how amped up he is. And, at one point, one of the assassins that he's retaliating against, he confronts her in a public place, and she chides him, like, what made you choose to do this? Like, this could have been a serious mistake if I was expecting you. And the drama of that scene is more so you as the audience wondering sort of the same things that Fassbender's wondering, even though she says it out loud, so it's less subtle, like, oh, you think I might have poisoned the food here that I'm offering you? Or, oh, what if one of these waiters knows that I'm in trouble and calls in backup, like, are you thinking about this? And he doesn't really speak to her, but you can tell the wheels are turning in his head, like, oh, I'm acting out of pocket. I'm doing the wrong thing here. But he still gets her. And the only time she does like this last ditch thing where she pretends to slip and reaches out her hand because she's an older woman and goes, will you help me up? And he just shoots her in the fucking face. I mean, some people think that shit is badass. I thought that was badass. Those are the things I liked about this film. But, if the film doesn't have a lot of dialogue, and it doesn't have like a love interest or a sidekick tagging along with the spy, the assassin, the killer, and if the killer doesn't have a real established character, and the people he's tracking don't have a lot of screen time or a very ironclad motivation for attacking him other than just business, what does the movie have? If a lot of people are directly praising this movie, saying it broke new ground, they're giving it the red letter media thing. They're actually literally pulling it's subversive because it doesn't follow your typical spy or assassin movie tropes, and it doesn't play out like an action movie or a Mission Impossible or even a Jason Bourne. What's the appeal of the movie? Well, like the first 30 minutes of the movie is the guy discussing his method in his internal dialogue, basically telling it to himself to pass the time as he sits around in a cold ass room just waiting for a target to show his face for 30 fucking minutes. And that's the best part of the movie. When the movie is actually forced to move along a series of events and you're not just literally, take your son to work day for an assassin, basically, where you just get to sit in and look at his process. The movie is left only with its sense of style. And that's where David Fincher really comes in handy. David Fincher's eye for color, for framing, for showing something that doesn't look flashy. There's not a lot of flashy shots. There's not a lot of crazy editing. He just knows how to frame and light a room and dress the characters a certain way and catch certain blocking in movement and in certain facial expressions and get good takes. And he can make anything interesting. He can make Seven, which is a pretty wild and aggressive movie, but also sort of a detective story. He can make Fight Club, which is a very avant-garde fucking drama, almost comedy drama. And then you got he did The Social Network, which I watched purely because he directed it, and I really liked Seven and Fight Club, and I was shocked to find that a biopic about fucking Mark Zuckerberg, of all people, was really interesting, because Mark Zuckerberg's a fucking sociopath, and David Fincher is a super good director, and he did choose to focus on the drama of the fact that Facebook was basically stolen from these rival students of Mark Zuckerberg, and the whole drama surrounding that and his backstabbing of the other co-founders of the website was the interesting part of the movie. And I really love that movie. It's very long and shit. But what does The Killer have? Well, The Killer strips everything away, and we got Fassbender's performance. We got the whole, following the actual realistic methodicalness of a trained assassin, the way he learns how to infiltrate a secured environment through social engineering, through falsifying key cards and scoping people out, and the way he tracks people down, and the way he, threatens people for information. Like, that was the interesting part of the shit. And then Fincher's directing, and then we have Trent Reznor's score. Now, I like Nine Inch Nails as a band, and Trent Reznor's done some good scores in the past. This was not one of them. Holy shit, the score for The Killer is very bad. And if it wasn't for the fact that the character of the killer, who doesn't have a name, so he's the killer, Michael Fassbender's the killer, if it wasn't for the fact that he's clearly obsessed with the Smiths, which is a band I also like very much, so a lot of the audio is actually him listening to, Morrissey and the Smiths sing songs, really breaks up Trent Reznor's score, because Trent Reznor, holy shit, there's this one sequence where the killer's flying into Miami to go after his first target, and he's just leaving the airport, and the score is almost literally the sounds of nails on a chalkboard, fucking piano strings being plucked, a mosquito going like in your ear, and then an almost Terminator ripoff, except for it's out of key, going dun 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 dun. on like an 8-second loop, like reminiscent of playing like super old video games where the whole score for the game is dun dun is like an 8-second or 10-second loop, like not even 30 seconds like a dignified game, but the little fucking shitty, lo-fi fucking 8-bit score is just dun 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 dun, and that segment goes on for a very long time because the movie actually takes the time to show the sort of monotony and the necessary patience for the killer's job as he flies coach and drives for very long hours and stakes out places and sleeps in a car and shows how much discipline he has to have because his job is not glamorous and it's not fast. It's careful and little else. And like I said, the only drama in the movie is his struggle to stay careful and stay calm and to stay methodical when he's actually deep down, even though he's doing his best not to show it, very angry and very nervous. And like they only show that nervousness in subtle shit, like him taking his pulse meter off because it's going like 120 beats per minute, which is an extremely high pulse rate for a super athletic dude who can almost by force of will get his pulse rate down to 60 beats per minute and below. The average person, especially if they don't exercise regularly, is going to have your average beats per minute of somewhere between 75 and like 90. So 90 would be his heart beating fast. 100 would be his heart beating fast. 120 would be like if I ran for half a mile. I'd be fucked up. So him sitting in a car and just seeing this target and his pulse rate spiking that high shows that even though his face is very calm and serious and blank, he's actually freaking out. But if you don't have that eye for detail, you wouldn't get it. So a lot of people have praised this movie by saying, hey, it's for people who are thinking and paying attention. And I'm saying, no, it's not what I got from this movie. What I got from this movie is unless you are capable of paying very rapt attention and thinking about the movie as you watch it, the movie will suffer for that. And a bunch of people say, what are you, a retard? What do you need to go see Fast and the Furious 20 and you need explosions and tits and car chases and gunfights to take the movie seriously? I didn't say that. However, if you strip interpersonal drama, if you strip a lot of actual person-to-person dialogue out of the film, if you have a very bad score and not a lot of flashy shit is going on, there's not a lot of ritzy locales, there's not a lot of eye candy in the movie. The movie only has doing a deliberately very muted performance Fassbender doing a deliberately very muted performance and David Fincher having his very sparse and Spartan and mechanical but very beautiful and carefully chosen shots and carefully chosen color and lighting, but not a lot of style there. If you're taking everything away from the movie, you're left with this very brave leap into, can I sell a two-dimensional film that has none of the tropes that are tried and tested as archetypal story styles that we know audiences like and we know audiences love. And it doesn't matter whether you're an idiot or smart, we know that these are stimulating. So if you take a movie that is deliberately low on stimulation, can you still give me a good movie? Well, did I like The Killer? Yes. Do I think I could improve upon it? Probably not if it's very true to its source material. I would have to improve upon it by straying away from the very deliberate decision to have it as sparse in singular of focus as a comic, especially a comic about an assassin would be. You have to be okay with having a character sitting there staring off into space, explaining himself to you directly through an internal monologue, which this film also chooses to do a lot less than it could. In fact, a lot of times when you're hearing his internal monologue, he's repeating a mantra to himself that is part of the same thing he told you in the 20-minute segment where he's casing his first target at the very introduction of the movie. He's not adding new information, and he's also not admitting to you that he's losing his shit. He's not admitting to you that he's rushing this job. He's not admitting to you that he's nervous or angry. He only occasionally even admits to you that he just made a mistake. And it's not that he doesn't know he's made more mistakes than that. It just might be the one time he chose to literally say out loud in his head, like, fuck, I shouldn't have done that. You know, it was brave is the number one thing I'd say about the movie. And it's brave in a good way through a lot of parts of the movie and brave in a bad way. The only thing I gotta say is, dude, Trent Reznor has got to stop getting work in Hollywood. He's no fucking Danny Elfman. He's no John Williams. Fuck off, Trent. Okay. There is, I believe, if I remember right, he might have also done the score for The Social Network. I forget, but Trent Reznor has done some very interesting soundscape style scores where the scores aren't really music. They're kind of tones and weird kind of droning motifs, and I could tell that's what he was doing in this movie, only it was probably the worst example I've ever seen of his score writing work. It was horrifically bad. I despised almost every second of his score in this movie. So what would I score this movie to transition and try to get out of here in well under 20 minutes, because I don't know if I have much more to say about the film than that, is based on just that skeleton of Fincher's work and Fassbender's work. I like this movie. There are some people saying it's one of the coolest movies they've seen in a long time. Dude, this isn't even the coolest graphic novel adaptation on a streaming service that I've seen this year. So my praise for it is not that high. By the way, Mads Mikkelsen in Polar is a better movie than The Killer. Prove me wrong. I'd love to see, especially if you've seen both movies, in the comments, because Polar is over the top. It's way more stylistic. It's got a lot of hyper violence and shit in it. But in my opinion, Polar is not a significantly different movie in structure or in plot or in character to The Killer. But the two movies look and feel and play out very differently, because Polar leans into some cliches in a good way, and The Killer leans as far away from cliche as possible to some positive effect and some negative. But if you know me, and if you watch any of my movie reviews, how do I rate movies? I try my best to ascertain what a movie is going for, and I generally rate it on if it succeeded. And my only other metric is, did it piss me off more than it made me happy? Or did it make me happy more than it pissed me off? So, you know, I'm not one of these people who says everything starts at a 7 out of 10, and then, you know, because that's unbalanced. If you're on an out of 10 scale, perfectly mediocre and fine is a 5. It's not a 7. It's not an 8. Fine, I kind of liked it. It was okay, is a 5. The Killer is a 6.5. To be honest with you. It was too brave, it was too Spartan, it was too stripped down. But there's only a couple things that made me mad. But it also didn't really impress me in any way. It did not do anything I have not seen before. Not a single thing. The positive marks ahead or 5 are like the sound design and the fight scene with the Brute in Miami was super cool. However, the drawback against that scene, it's shot pitch fucking black and you can barely tell what's going on because it happens in a dark house with almost none of the lights on. So you can't see what's happening. Now, since it's a streaming service movie, you can pause and watch back and kind of like pan in a little closer and see like, holy shit, that I don't know if he's an Indian or a Seminole or a fucking Maui dude or what the fuck the Brute was. But he fucking powerbombed Fassbender through a table like he's fucking Batista from Ruthless Aggression era WWE fucking wrestling. That was wild. Slams him through a fucking TV. That was pretty fucking cool. I really loved how, since it's on like a raised house that has really loud creaky floorboards because it's on like the floodplains near the ocean, you can hear his footfalls thudding around because he's like a 270-pound guy who's, even though Fassbender's not a small guy, he's way bigger than Fassbender. Shit like that. I thought that was awesome. That was great. The sound mixing in the movie, super good. But of course, contrasted by a particularly terrible Trent Reznor score that was at times absolutely agonizing to endure. Without characters to bite on, without an interesting plot that has in any way nothing other than a completely predictable resolution, I can't give it better than a 6.5. But it's a strong 6.5. I recommend you watch it. I think Fassbender's performance sells itself. I think David Fincher's directorship work sells itself. And Fincher has not done a lot of movies since, like, Fight Club. Like, I've seen Gone Girl. It's pretty okay. It probably would be better if Ben Affleck wasn't in it. I've seen The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Great movie. It's not as good as the book, and the actual original French version is pretty competitive, even with Fincher's higher budget and has Daniel Craig and a really good actress in it. I can't remember who plays the actual girl in that because I haven't seen it in 10 years. But, if you're a fan of Fincher's work, I recommend it. If you're a fan of Fassbender's work, I recommend it. If you're a fan of slower burning movies, I've seen this movie compared to Day of the Jackal. I'd say that's fairly accurate. I've seen it compared to 3 Days of the Condor. Fairly accurate. I've seen quite a few movies like this. I actually really liked the more methodical, less action-focused assassin thing. But that's a hard thing to sell a whole movie on. A short just about the killer that's like 30 minutes long, and you go just with the bare bones methodical planning and execution of a hit that goes off successfully, and that's the end of it, would ultimately probably be more interesting than trying to hinge an entire 2-hour plot. And given that I like, especially if a movie is bare bones and straightforward, I like a movie like this to be an hour and 40 minutes, so it doesn't overstay its welcome. The Killer's 2 hours, so it's not too long, but you could probably trim 20 minutes off it, a minute here, a minute there, and make it more tidy. Because if it's a movie that have a lot of deliberately sitting and waiting around, there was probably some extra edits of this film, and they probably really agonized over how to cut this so that it's not too long and it's not too short. And I think they hit a pretty happy medium there. 2 hours is survivable. So don't be offended if you really love this movie. There's a lot of movies I love that I actually really love that I would not score above a 6.5 because, they're either guilty pleasures or the things I like about them carry the whole movie through all its flaws, But I've seen a lot of movies like this. This movie did not do anything particularly special in any way. It was just slick, and it had a style, and it had a tone, and it had a feel, and I think it achieved what it set out to do, and yet it didn't impress me. I'm sorry. So anyway, 23 minutes is long enough. Thanks for watching.